Hello and welcome to this edition of Windows Business Weekly. Today I'm going to talk about the makeover that Microsoft has given to its to-do list application and how to solve some problems using Outlook with Windows 10 virtual desktops. So stay tuned. So in the last few days, Microsoft has rolled out an update to its to-do list application. Now, if you're not aware, this was an application that Microsoft purchased, Wunderlist. I think it was a German-owned application. I'm not entirely sure about that. But it was very, very popular. And instead of developing their own application, Microsoft decided to buy it and essentially move the infrastructure over to Office 365. Now, what they've actually done is rather than take the existing Wunderlist application and just kind of rebrand it, they started from scratch and tried to kind of recreate a lot of the features in Wunderlist, many of which are now there. I'm not sure that all of them are now there, but a lot of them are there. And the key reason, of course, to use Microsoft To Do over Wunderlist is that integration that you get with Office 365. So essentially the tasks that you create in Task List are all replicated in Outlook and of course Office 365 itself. And that gives you access to them in a way that you just cannot get with Wunderlist. Now that may seem relatively trivial, but having all of your information in one place, of course, is probably quite important for a lot of workers and a lot of businesses. For me, it makes a big difference with just simple things that most of the time I'm using of course, to-do list application, but sometimes there are complicated things that I want to do, like count the number of tasks I've completed in a particular month. And for me, that's easier actually to do in Outlook than it is in the application itself. So it gives me that advantage. Now, the application, as I said, it didn't have feature parity with Wunderlist. I'm not sure that it still does, but it has, quite a lot of the most important features. And what Microsoft has done this week is they've updated the look. So what you get now, instead of a list of tasks in each task list, is you get tiles. And it just makes each task easier to read in the list. You've also got slight tweaks to the fonts and the headings. And you've also got the ability now to set a different background for each task list. So I don't know if you used Wunderlist, but you probably remember that famous Berlin Tower green background that they had. That is now part of To Do. And there's a whole load of other just plain colours or pictures that you can choose just to personalise your task lists and make it easier to differentiate between them. Okay, so I just want to stop there and apologise actually for the podcast that I did 2 weeks ago. It was a bit of a production disaster. If you remember back, I was talking about, what was I talking about? I was talking about, let me think. Installing applications using Microsoft's new Edge browser, the one that's based on Chromium. Now, I don't know quite what happened during the post-production phase, probably user idiocy, but I managed to delete the introduction. I managed to delete all of the visual overlays for that podcast. So I wanted to show you actually what installed applications look like in Chrome, in the Chromium-based Edge. And unfortunately, all of that information disappeared. Now, I just didn't have time to go back and add all that stuff back in again. I think I probably accidentally pressed undo a couple of times somehow. I've been having some problems with the rig that I use to record these videos, and I hope most of those problems are now sorted out so that I won't get any issues with audio or issues with accidentally rolling back things and making changes that I didn't intend. So last week's video is a bit of a mess. This week's video, I'm trying to change the production values a bit. It's really difficult to record in natural daylight because, as you can see, I've kind of set the exposure on the camera and all of the kind of picture style settings that govern how the video actually looks to try and make it look a bit natural and a bit less harsh and processed like previous videos. But the problem is when the sun comes out, I get a washed out exposure. When the sun goes in, everything looks fine. So I'm still working around those things. I don't really have the setup here for like studio lighting and all that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping that this video is going to sound better, look better, and come with the introduction and any visuals that I decide to add to it for you. So that's to do. That's what happened with the last video that I made, which was 2 weeks ago. I took a bit of a break to try and resolve some of those issues. Now, I know that we've talked about virtual desktops a couple of times on this webcast. And of course, they're not really used very much, partly because you kind of have to set them up, partly because they're kind of a little bit hidden in the Windows user interface, so maybe not many users actually even aware that this feature exists. But when you do get it, with certain applications, it can be a bit of an issue because they don't always play nice with virtual desktops. They weren't designed for use with virtual desktops in mind. Now, what I've started doing again recently is putting my to-do list and my Outlook on a separate virtual desktop, because I find I'm always closing them down just to get them out of the way. And I thought, why am I not putting these on a separate virtual desktop? Because I was doing that in the past. And then I remembered why, because Outlook doesn't play nice with virtual desktops. So here are a couple of tricks that you can implement for your users to make it so that Outlook really works well with virtual desktops. So the first thing to do is you need to go into the Outlook Advanced settings, and basically you need to disable that pesky little reminders window. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. Now that I've got to do set up, and that's reminding me about things, Cortana sometimes reminding me about things, do I really need this little reminders window in Outlook? Probably not, to be honest. So the problem is you put Outlook onto a second desktop and it opens the reminders window on the first desktop. That's not really a thing. That's not really what I wanted to happen. So my solution to that, unfortunately, is just to disable it in the advanced settings and just ask yourself, do you really need it anyway? If it's essential to your workflow, then I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer for that at the moment. Maybe in the comments you can let me know if you have a solution for that. The second problem with putting Outlook on another virtual desktop is that when you press the icon on the taskbar, if you have it pinned to the taskbar, it opens up a second instance on the first desktop. Of course, most applications don't do that, but Outlook does. So, okay, of course, that's not the behavior that I want. When I press the icon on the taskbar, I want it to swap to the second desktop and open the already running instance of Outlook there. So how have I solved that problem? It's pretty easy to solve. First of all, you need to find the Outlook executable or a shortcut to Outlook somewhere on the file system. Make a copy of it, and then basically in the properties, so go to properties, and you find the file path that it's going to open, and all you need to do is add the recycle switch to the end of that file path. Now, I'll try to put a screenshot on here so that you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And then you pin that shortcut to the taskbar. And from then on, when you click the icon on the taskbar, it will open the currently running instance of Outlook. Now, I don't know whether there are any side effects to doing that. There may be, and I'm going to test that this week. So it may not be an ideal solution. But it is something that you probably want to have a look at if you want to put Outlook on a different virtual desktop, because opening another instance of the program really is not a solution as far as I'm concerned. So, 2 things this week. Make sure you get the updated to-do list. It's updated for Android, I guess iOS as well. I haven't checked. I don't have an iOS device. It's updated for Windows 10, and I think it's a big improvement. And have a look again at virtual desktops. Put in your Outlook on to-do list on another virtual desktop so that you're not constantly closing them down all the time to get them out of the way. And have a look at that little trick that I described in order to get Outlook to open in the currently running instance. Okay, so there are my 2 tips for your users, for your business this week when using Windows. Have a look at them and hope to catch you next week.